Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. We are in the extracting room today. It's been a rainy day and we are currently going through some contract extracting. So some people will drop off their supers of honey for me to extract here, and we've just done an extractor full of 20 frames of honey and they're running out. But I want to show you one reason why I no longer use wax foundation. So look in here and look down here. There's lots of bits of wire and wax and that sort of thing, as basically one of the combs blew out. So hold that, just turn that round, Jordan. So basically the force of the honey, the combs, we keep the combs in here pretty warm so the honey runs well, and the force of the extraction just blew the comb out. It was slightly biased weight from one side or the other, and it caused the comb to break apart and fly around inside the extractor. That unbalances the extractor, which doesn't help, but with 20 small frames in there it doesn't really matter, but if you had 4 frames in there it would make a big difference. And then you have to spend a lot of time cleaning out wax out of the extractor, and it's going to be blocking your sieves all the time and that sort of thing as well. So generally speaking, it doesn't happen that often. I was just telling Jordan I've probably only had 4 or 5 frames blow out on me in the last couple of years, but that's plenty. Most of my frames are plastic foundation, so I'm not likely to have it, but when I'm doing other people's combs, I'm afraid I have to give them a comb which is somewhat less than they brought in. So what we're doing here is we've still got one super left to extract. This one on the top is done, so we'll take that away, Jordan, and we'll start the process of uncapping the next lot, I'd say. Get that plugged in. Doesn't really matter, we can clean it up at the end of the day, but when that's warm, we'll go for it. As I say, right now it's still raining. It's supposed to have cleared up by now. It's Monday afternoon and it's gone 2 o'clock. It was supposed to have been sunny by now. It was actually sunny first thing this morning. We still don't have a goldenrod honey flow. The bees are on the goldenrod every day, but I would say that there's no significant goldenrod flow. Bees are still clustering at the hive, or let's say some of the field bees are out on the goldenrod and they are certainly getting some nectar from it, but not high quantities. There's not enough to get the bees to all the field bees out working on it. We still have a relatively high number of field bees in the hives, so there's no significant goldenrod flow yet. But having said that, there almost never is. I was just being optimistic that this sort of weather might just change that. So we're going to tip the extractor back and start the process of uncapping. And let's see if I can get an angle at it that's going to work. Are your hands relatively sticky free? You can do a little bit of videoing. It's okay if you hold it by that bit there. One thing for sure is everything gets very sticky when you're doing it. This is still not working very well. Still tearing it. Hoping we'd just be able to tear it down. That is working.
Yes.
So the other plane wasn't working very well, so it needed to be cleaned up. So this one I've cleaned up and scratched down, got the crud off it. While this was warming up, I've cleaned up the other one. So if it's clean and hot, it works really well. So far the honey flow is gone. The spring honey flow went okay. Wasn't anything spectacular. And we're waiting for the fall honey flow. Right now I've extracted about a bit over 400 pounds of honey and have maybe 1,500 pounds to come in off the hives of summer honey rather than the fall honey. And we're going to do some of that during the course of the coming week. We'll get some of that off. And we'll be doing some larger scale extraction. But I just wanted to get these contract extractions out of the way. I didn't want single supers and 4 supers, 3 supers lying around here and getting confused with my own. The other thing I really want to stress is that if ever you are dropping honey off for me to extract, please do not leave honey supers outside the barn. Always bring them in. Yes, I do. It's fine. Generally speaking, people can do things when I'm not here and drop stuff off, but do not leave unattended honey outside where my bees can find it. Otherwise, you won't have any honey for me to extract, and I will have an almighty cloud of bees all around the front of my barn. And I really don't want that, because it's also right next to my pool, and that's when my wife likes to spend a few days in the summer. And if the pool is surrounded by bees because someone left a super of honey around the barn, I won't be inviting you back. But that doesn't happen very often. What's more likely to happen is one of us will leave the door to the barn open and we'll have 10,000 bees come in and start helping themselves. And that can always be exciting. This is the last of 9 supers, I believe. My friend Tom dropped off, and be bottling that up for him today and tomorrow. Should be ready to pick up pretty soon. This gadget here is called a capping plane. It works really well if you're prepared to spend the money on something like this. You really don't need it for small scale extracting, but if you're doing thousands of frames a year, it's a good investment. But typically a capping knife works really well. They're more like $125, $130, and that will work great. And I used that until I had about 70 hives or so. So that would be more than enough usually. Capping scratcher, one of these things, which just coming closer, see that. Capping scratcher is useful for getting odd combs, with misshapen combs and that sort of thing, but not enough to really worry about. There's a little bit of honey in there. This will be a little bit unbalanced, I suspect. So I'm going to move this one over here. Try and get the light frames opposite light frames and heavy frames opposite heavy frames. And that way the weight on both sides of the extractor are roughly similar, and you should be able to go. Come close, you can look inside. There's our last 10 frames. We could fit 20 frames in here, but it's the last 10 of this batch. Not going to go too fast because we don't want to blow out any more foams. And once it's been spinning at this sort of intermediate speed for a minute or so, then most of the honey is out of the frame. Then we can speed it up to get the last 20% of the honey out of the frames. When you're extracting, probably 80% of the honey comes out in the first 2 minutes, and the next 10 minutes are spent getting the last 20% out. All depending on the temperature. Right now we have the temperature in this room at about 85 degrees, maybe a bit higher. Flows really well, but if it's 75 degrees in here, it'll take twice or 3 times as long. This is pretty good there, sorry. Collecting here. We are accumulating in our wax melter. Captainalta here, which I'll drag out when it's nearly full, but we're about halfway filled so far. It'll probably take another 50 supers of honey to fill that up, and then we'll be starting some melting. Tip it. Actually, should I put a clean sieve on there just to make it so it doesn't back up too much? Okay. And of course, we've still got quite a bit of wax blocking up things, so we'll be getting that through. Clean that out in time. Buckets of honey, liquid gold. So far. So that's it for now. we will, as it's still raining out here, I'll get this edited. And then we'll get on with some other projects. Tomorrow I'm using up the last of those queen cells that were made last week, or the week before, and there's a few more coming through. We'll check on the progress of the second batch we did last week. I'll make, I think, 5 or 6 nukes with the cells I've got left over right now, and maybe another dozen or so the week after. So anyway, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. I will see you when the sun shines. See you next time.